from the DFS pregame show here on RotoGrinders. I'm Jordan Cooper, a.k.a. Blender Ed, Blender HD. If you want to follow me on Twitter. And it's Wednesday, June 22nd. It's still heating up out there, right? I think it's going to be 100 degrees today in Louisville. Stay inside, get your air conditioner ready. We got baseball. We got baseball all day. We got a 4-game afternoon slate. The 2 o'clock and 4 o'clock games. And then we got a 9-game MLB slate later tonight. Give me those thumbs. You know how it helps us out. The YouTube algorithm and the DFS gods help you out with the thumbs ups. So give me those thumbs ups early here in the morning. First thing in the door. Hit the subscribe button if you're new here. Hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Good morning. Dunn Montgomery beat out Suki Singh by 3 minutes. Suki, you got to get here a little bit earlier. Boondada, I don't know who you are, but good morning. Good morning to you, Daniel Hutchings, Nerdy Tenor here. Hopefully, he has some sim results for me because of my little experiment that I will be talking about. That's what I've been talking about all week. Julian Wilson, good morning. Good morning, Grinders. Good morning. The experiment. What am I talking about? The experiment. I'm getting sick and tired of playing a million lineups in baseball, and the time investment, even though it's not that much time. It's a pain in the ass. So I've been focusing a lot on where can you find the edges? Isn't that the goal? Find the edges, make the money. Like that's what it is. Instead, now by default, there's edge in large field contests because there's a lot of bad players in the large field contest. Problem is realizing your expected value there is pretty damn tough. I don't mind doing it, but if there's an easier way, to make consistently more or at least as much money. And I've been talking about this for a long time about exploiting 3-mans, 5-mans, 10-mans, small field GPPs under 100-man type of stuff. So for the past 2 days, Monday I did it, Tuesday, yesterday I did it to much more success on, especially in baseball in a high variance sport, just staying away from the common correlative lineups that are in those contests, especially when you probably can guess what those combinations are going to be. Okay, this is all based on you being able to do that. If you can't do that, then obviously you don't know what players are correlated to each other in these contests. And I'm not talking about stacks. I'm talking about, well, if people are playing O'Neal Cruz, they're probably playing Mike Trout or Byron Buxton in your lineup. They're probably playing Wilson Contreras at catcher. They're probably playing Sean Manaea at pitcher. And there's going to be a lot of overlap of these types of lineups together. Now, in double ups and 50-50s, well, in 50-50s, definitely. Double ups to some extent, to a major extent, there's no benefit in changing from that, right? Whatever the top median optimal is, or one of the top median optimals in those contests, over the long run is good. Half the field doubles their money or gets 1.8x their money. There's no progressive payout past there. But in triple ups, in quadruple ups, if you're going to be different, right? This is a GPP concept. If you're going to be different, if you're going to lower your projection, you got to lower your ownership, right? Gain leverage. The reason why you do that is because as the payout structure goes up, you get paid more money. So you don't have to beat the other lineup. So in a head-to-head, if my opponent's playing a lineup, let's say that's projected at 112, and I'm playing a lineup that's projected at 108, from a median standpoint, over the course of a million trials or whatever, that my opponent's going to win 51% of the time, right? But in a head-to-head, you just get the other person's money. So you don't want to be a 49%. You don't want to be an underdog in that spot. But what happens if it's 51-49, but you get paid double, right? You get 3 extra money. Well, then it's worthwhile. How often do you have to beat your opponent if you're going to get paid twice the amount of money? Well, 33% of the time, right? To break even. So in a 3-man, obviously, once you add on the rake, now that raises to 36% or so. How often do you have to win against 2 other players if they were playing completely unique lineups? Well, yeah, about 36% of the time. But if you could predict the combinations, if your other 2 opponents are playing 2v2s and 3v3s, and you're playing a 6v6 or a 7v7, you're dropping your projection 2 or 3 points. Do you win more than 36% of the time to make up for it? And is it because that your other 2 opponents or your other 4 opponents are sharing so many players together that when one of them goes down, they all go down, right? Because they're all correlated to each other. So that's the experiment. Now I can see you can simulate this out. I could rudimentarily simulate this out, but I don't even trust what I'm doing to simulate that out. People in the YouTube chat, I'm waiting for nerdy tenor. It's really all about correlation between lineups in your contest. Everyone talks about duplication, but that's really just a special case of correlation. That is 100% correlation. That's correct. Absolutely. That's what I was talking about yesterday. Because we all know, it's already proven. We all know, right? Well, I like teaching in extremes. So if you're playing a contest and you completely dupe with another player in a progressive payout structure contest, which a triple up even is. It's not half the field, or a 10-man that top 3 pay 50%, 30%, 20%. That still is a GPP. That still is a progressive payout contest. So if you dupe completely, if you and someone else have the same exact lineup, that totally destroys your equity. Not totally, but it lowers your expected value. You're now negative EV. And all the equity that you're losing is going to your opponents. And that's if you're duplicating your entire lineup. Well, it must be true that equity must be released. If, let's say, you and another player have a 1v1. You got the same exact lineup, but one person has Buxton and one person has Acuna. Well, the same applies. It can't just be, well, now that's considered a, quote, unique lineup. And everyone has the same equity. Like, as long as everyone's within a certain, like, a 1-point projection of each other, they all have about equal shot of winning. That isn't true, because if one was duplicated completely, you'd be like, well, that person's an idiot. Well, how come a little bit less of an idiot if it's a 1v1 or a 2v2? So how is that exploitable? If you could predict those lineups, and they're going to be building duplicated styles of lineups, all you have to do is make sure you're as little duplicated as possible with all the other lineups in the contest. As long as you still have a high enough projection. What that line is, how low you can go, I don't know. Right? That's what I'm experimenting with. On Monday, I didn't get as different as I could on DraftKings. I was like a 3v3 off of a lot of popular lineups. And although I didn't get there, it wasn't a result-based that I was worried about. I didn't care about the results. It's just like, oh, I'm not different enough. So how different do I have to be? So yesterday, and we showed on the show yesterday, I was going to be very different. So like on DraftKings yesterday, I mean, even someone, let me go to my lineup, which I got killed with not having Ohtani. It did fine for me on FanDuel. So I did great on FanDuel. Just that DraftKings, I broke even. Because I still won plenty of 3-mans. I'm playing tons of 3-mans, 5-mans, 10-man. I'm playing tons of them. All the triple ups. Like, I'm trying to basically I'm avoiding, like, I'm playing some head-to-heads, but I'm using it more like a matrix. So I'm playing like 30 head-to-heads. And it's like, I know the people that play in the head-to-head lobby are playing very similar lineups that I could predict. So as a whole, I think I have an advantage over the entire head-to-head lobby, but maybe not individually. So if you take a look at my lineup, someone DM'd me yesterday and asked me if my lineup was a mistake. Like, if they saw me and I typically don't play MLB Cash really, but they saw me in MLB Cash and they're like, dude, did you make a mistake? Like they wanted to know what was going on. They wouldn't have expected this lineup out of me, because they see, look, I mean, yes, I have a 77% on Minaya. I have a 30% on Sal Perez. I have a 21% Soto, but I have like all single digit own guys in a double, in a triple up. This is with what, 62 entries? I just wanted to show you the largest type of contest, like a triple up, not a GPP. And looking, I mean, I did well. Of course, Ohtani was 33% owned and put up, God knows, 43 points. So that killed me on DraftKings from profiting. I still won on DraftKings. right? Not much. But of course, it helped me on FanDuel. FanDuel, I crushed. So if you look here, it's like if I go to, for instance, like BK Reader, like if you're in the cash lobby, you know who the players that play like everything. So BK Reader, take a look at the ownership in this lineup. 77%. Okay, we got Minaya there. 41% Cortez. Okay, I had Strider, which was 35%. Right? The pitchers, I'm less likely to just, oh, I'm going to play a 1% on pitcher. Like the projection goes down too much. But you take a look, Devers, 50% Devers, 75% O'Neill Cruz, 45% Trout, 48% Jack Sawinski. I mean, other than the fact of a 33% Ohtani putting up 43 points, and of course he had Walsh in his lineup at 21%. Like outside of Ohtani, all these look at how much overlap is there between Devers, Cruz, Trout, Sawinski lineups. Right, we go to John Ivor, right? He's the exact same line. I mean, look, literally duplicated. Right, literally the same exact lineup. Go to Uticau, a little bit different, but still Devers, Cruz, Trout, Sawinski. But he had Ohtani in the lineup. He also had Ronzi Contreras up here. We go down a little bit further. We go to keep calm and tilt on, right? Still, look, I mean, no one in single digits, but look, Cruz, Buxton at 37%, and Sawinski. Still Vogelback 22, Contreras 21, Ramirez was 19. We go down, let's Davis K over here. Devers, Cruz, Buxton, Sawinski. Vogelback 22. We go down a little bit further. Fire Dog 50. Devers, Cruz, Trout, Sawinski. I mean, like Perez. There's another Walsh, 21% Walsh. Go down a little bit further. AJML 45. Take a look at here. Cruz, Trout, Sawinski, Buxton. Vogelback, Contreras, Ramirez. I mean, like, look at these combinations. Ship my money, right? A little bit different, but still, look, Devers, Cruz, Trout, Buxton, Sawinski, Perez, Donovan at 22%. BRK Nets 33. Look at how many lineups have similar combinations. So it's not only that, like, if Buxton does badly and Sawinski does not enough, like they're all in the same lineups. So they're all moving. Like you have out of these 62 lineups, you have like 30, 40 of them, maybe more, 45 of them, like moving very similarly to each other. They may not have the whole combination, but very similar combinations to each other, as opposed to my lineup, which is not even on that track whatsoever. Right? Go back to my lineup. My lineup looks like nutso compared to those lineups. Like those are good cash players. Now, cash players as far as head-to-heads and double-ups, okay, where you just get 2 extra money. I'm going to get 3x my money if I beat those combinations, or quintuple-ups, 5x, 10x, right? Now, those are the contests. I'm not playing 50-50s. I'm not playing those contests. I'm playing contests where, because my projection is a little bit lower, that I'm basically getting leverage. So if I'm going to lower my ownership, if I'm lowering my projection, I need to up my payout. Now in GPPs, you can't do that, right? In GPPs, you can't just say, well, I want to get paid more. It's fixed. But essentially, if I'm going to play a lineup like this, I shouldn't be playing in double ups. I should be playing it in quintuple ups and triple ups and stuff like that. It's not a correlated, it's not a stacked lineup. But it's like this lineup that I played, it looks weird. If you played on DraftKings yesterday, it looks weird. If you played cash games. But this lineup only projected 3.5 points lower than like the bad optimal, around the industry aggregate optimals. 3.5 points. That's it. But for 3.5 points, look, I'm other than Sal Perez and Soto, it's like I am and Minaya, obviously. I'm completely off those combinations, like completely. So like when Baez has a good game, like, dude, I skyrocket to the top, right? When Story hits that home run at 9%, right? Kirilloff, 4% owned. I'm rocketing to the top. Now, do I have to get this different, though? I'm not sure. I was 3.5 points lower in projection. Maybe I could only be 2.5 points. Maybe it wouldn't have minded. Maybe instead of having Bader here, I had because Bader was 2,200 and Sawinski was 2,200. So I could have had Sawinski here. Would that have been enough? It probably would have been enough, but what would be the highest EV? I don't know. I just went by the assumption I want to just stay away from the combinations completely. As much I want to be not as correlated as possible, as long as I'm not dropping too much in projection. So that's what I did on DraftKings. And on FanDuel, I did the same thing. This is the lineup I played in, quote, cash. It's not really cash games. I'm playing 3-mans, 5-mans, 10-mans. Small, like, that they'll release like a 27-man, $25 Grand Slam or something, some little GPP. I'm playing this type of lineup in that. Now, I still had Ohtani in this lineup because if I removed Ohtani on FanDuel, the projection dropped too much. So I kept him. So I was like, okay, Ohtani's going to be popular, right? He's going to be in these combinations that I'm looking at. But I'm dropping too much in projection. Same thing for Minaya. Yeah, Minaya's going to be 56% owned, and I'm looking at a quintuple up. So this is the big $5 quintuple up, top 16 win. But if we take a look here, take a look at lineups that are even like tied with each other. So these are popular combination types of lineups. So we take a look here. O'Neal Cruz, 47%. Buxton, 45%. Acuna, 23%. Right? You take a look at this lineup. Like, I didn't have, I X'd out Cruz, X'd out Buxton. I think I may have X'd out Acuna. Like, the difference in projection between these two lineups was like a point. Like, that's it. Just a point. But look how different. I have Baez. I have Minaya, obviously. Baez. And Ward. And Ohtani. And that's it. And everything else is different. Then we go down to, let's go to the next. Here's a big tie, 197.90, right, with BK Reader. So this is like an aggregated optimal type of lineup. So this is in 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 6 lineups in a 100 and something person, 90 person contest. In a quintuple up. They got there. But let's take a look at this. Buxton, Kepler, Acuna. Not as high owned as because FanDuel's a little bit softer. But still, getting off of the Buxton combinations, getting off of the Acuna combinations because he's expensive. There's only so many combinations. Ending up playing Olsen over Guerrero, that helped. But this is my experiment. This is what I'm trying to do. But playing 3-mans, 5-mans, triple ups, quintuple ups. This is not what you should be doing in head-to-heads and double-ups. So if you're going, oh, this is how I build my cash lineup now. I'm going to play a ton of whatever. Like this is the type of thing where you should only expect to win once every 3 to 5 days. You should win 3-mans every 3 days or so. 5-mans every 5 days or so. So this is not every day as long as I'm 51%. That's not this. But on FanDuel, on this lineup, 230, I mean, I pretty much swept all of my 3-mans, all of my 5-mans. I think it came in second out of 10 in some 10-mans, unless first out of 10. So basically, I played $635 or something. It should be on the screen. Right? I'm transparent. I show it. I mean, I essentially tripled my money. Right. $685 entry fees. 1823.51. So essentially pretty much tripled my money. DraftKings I made like $20, right? Because of Ohtani, right? Because I did fine on FanDuel for Ohtani, but not having Ohtani here, right? Yeah, that kind of killed me, right? Because he was 33% owned and put up 43 points on DraftKings, but still profited. Looking through the YouTube chat. Doug Montgomery asked, why didn't you only play 1 entry in the 100-man on FanDuel? Wouldn't 3 increase winning percentage versus money spent getting? No, I don't want to play 3 of the same lineup. Dude, then I'm duplicating myself. I'm playing the 100-man top 12 and playing one lineup into it and doing something like this. Daniel Hutchins says, I mean to push the idea further. Imagine lineups that are 1v1 where two different players are 99% correlated, right? I love the extreme teaching mechanisms. They are different lineups, but effectively it's the same as a dupe. It's a question of degree. Yeah, that's exactly what I was saying before. Ryan Simpson asks, what would you suggest for someone who's entering 150 lineups in a GPP on DraftKings? I would agree with Daniel Hutchins. Start smaller than 150. If you're asking that question, you probably should be starting with not 150 lineups. Build one good lineup, then two good lineups, then three good lineups, then 5, then 10, then 20. It took me 2 years to get up to building 150 good lineups. And even then you screw up a lot. So yeah, when in 2017, 2018, I won NBA GPPs, MLB GPPs, NFL GPPs, building 20 to 40 lineups. I was building 10 lineups by hand, 15 lineups by hand. Then you get a sense of, oh, these are the lineups that I want to make. How do I get the builder to do it for me? That's how you should be thinking in terms of an optimizer, of a lineup builder, like Lineup HQ. Not, I don't know what to do. Let it tell me what to do. No. Visualize the lineups that you want to build and go, well, how do I get those out of here? You're doing it for efficiency purposes. You're not doing, oh, okay, what settings do you know? It's like having a drill, right? You have a drill that has a whole bunch of settings. It's like, okay, well, make me a bookshelf. Like that doesn't work that way. What settings do you use to make a book? Now, well, those are the settings that you need. But if you're telling me, I don't even know what we're making, well, then how are you supposed to know how to use the tools? Devin's in the chat saying, it's taken me 5 to 7 years of doing this to get to the point where I'm comfortable putting my 20 into 150 to 1. Right. Maybe it shouldn't take 5 to 7 years if you're doing it seriously, but yeah, it takes a while. Sharpshooter GX, follow-up question, or a half of a follow-up question. Is that 1 out of 2 follow-up questions or a half a follow-up question? I don't know. So the discussion about the 121 being one of the softest fields. Thoughts on the 4-seamer or the $25 single entry or the $20 3 maxes? Well, understand, okay? You can answer your own question, okay? What, without berating you. Why is the $121 the softest field? Okay? Because your question is just taking it as because I said so. So you're not understanding the concepts. Once you understand the concepts, you can answer all the you could do this show for me. Right? It's not complicated. Okay? The 121 is one of the softest fields because there are a lot of lineups in there that people play too chalky. It's high stakes players throwing in their cash lineups. It's people playing the chalkiest stack. It's people just playing way too conservatively, just throwing something in there, which creates so much ownership condensement on a lot of the top end of the ownership spectrum that finding leverage while not sacrificing much projection is very easy. Right? If I could tell you that there's a lineup 110 point projection that's going to be owned at 7 trillion, and there's one at 109 where only 1 point lower that's going to be owned at 40. Like that's an extreme way of explaining that. So you do not have to drop much in projection to get a significant ownership drop. And that's the holy grail of contest you'd want to play. Right? When you can build, I can build a lineup on the 121 that has like all single-digit owned players. I have a single-digit owned stack. I think I played a national stack yesterday in the 121. You can play single-digit owned players and moderately 10 to 15% owned one-offs or something like that, and the two chalkiest pitchers, and you look at your lineup and compared to all the other lineups in the contest, your total ownership is like half, and your projection difference is like a point and a half. I mean, like not that much. It's really not The fact that I could drop all of that ownership and only sacrifice a point or two in projection is ludicrous, right? And so makes it the softest contest, and you could and also you could find a lot of lineups that are like that. It's not just, oh, well, there's one lineup. No, you could. There's tons of plus EV lineups that you could play in that contest because of how your opponents are playing. They're entering either cash lineups, way too chalky lineups, playing 40% owned one-offs. Like it's just a lot of that, which means it's, like I said, easier for you to find leverage, easier for you to drop your ownership significantly while not dropping your projection that significantly. So take that and move it on to the $25 single entry. Any smaller field single entry contest will have that dynamic to some extent. How much of an extent is a different story. Obviously, the larger the contest gets, like the more leverage that you probably want. So, like, I can understand in the $12 single entry with 2,000 entries, people aren't going to just throw there are plenty of people that still do throw their cash lineup in, but people look and go, oh, it's a 2,000 entry contest. Maybe I'm going to get a little bit off the board. So the ownership doesn't condense as much. It still does, but not to the extent that it does in the much smaller field. The 121 has like 600 entries or 500, something like that. So it's not just the fact that it's a single entry. It's also the size of the contest. You tell me the 121 is 10,000 entries, then there are going to be, your opponents are more likely to go, well, I can't just play my cash lineup. It's 10,000 entries, right? I can't just play the chalkiest stack and the chalkiest one-off. I still have to beat 9,999 other people. But people look at that 121 and have it 400 to 600 people and go, yeah, I'm just going to pretty much, I'm going to play a 5-man stack. I'm going to play, and then they're a high projected lineup, but it's just that they're duplicated, right? They're 2v2s off of a lot of other lineups. So that's that's why Daniel in chat would say that contest is the softest. Daniel Hutchins also said, I wrote out a tool to sim out your EV with some assumptions. Oh, you did? Can you give me the tool? I don't know. Sharpshooter GX, so I should compare ownership between the 121 and the other contest to see if it's similar chalk or correlated lineups. Yes, that would be an excellent idea. Compare that. You will still see ownership condense, but to what extent, right? We could go in results DB, and like I brought up like the $12 single entry. So you see here, O'Neal Cruz is like 43, Devers 29, Buxton 23. But if we move to like you mentioned the 4-seamer, but that's a large field contest, right? O'Neal Cruz still 30%, Devers 22, Buxton 19. You get a little bit more. Sawinski's only 14 here. That's a little bit more spread out. We go to, let's see, like the relay throw, the $15 large field. O'Neal Cruz is only 25%, so he goes down. Buxton 16. I mean, you'll still see the same people. Just is it going to be as condensed as like the Mega 8s, which is a 500 entry contest? Well, also you have more skillful players. So O'Neal Cruz came in lower because I think sharper players will be like, why am I playing a 2K one-off? That's going to be popular. But you still see Buxton 21, Devers 20, right? Trout 15, Sawinski 15. We go to that $12 chin music. It's actually the worst, right? Look how much more Buxton and Trout are here. Sawinski's about the same. O'Neal Cruz is ridiculous. So we can see here, the lower the stakes go, on average, single entry, smaller field, lower stakes, people tend to go, well, they're the best play, and they play the quote best plays too much. This is the main reason why I don't deal in the world of best plays. Because if you're playing on a 13-game slate of 43% owned O'Neal Cruz, why? Like, why? And maybe, yeah, in a pirate stack. Yes, okay. Yes, I get it. But why? It's not like he was projected for 14 points median, right? I mean, once I took Cruz out of my lineup when I was going through the process of picking a lineup, It only eliminated like a half a point of projection. So it's like, so yes, I think getting rid of all this ownership for a half a point in projection is worth it. I think so. So Daniel Hutchins says he could run Sims for contests we were both in. Well, the problem with the 121 is I play a different lineup in the 121. I play essentially what I'm doing. I just make it a 5-man stack. So it just turned out when I X'd out all the players that I X'd out, the 5-man stack that came up first was on DraftKings was a national stack. But that's truthfully that's not what I'm even looking to simulate. I'm looking to simulate more of the triple ups and the 3-mans and the 5-mans, like those types of contests. Like against 2 opponents or 4 opponents that all have some version of a 2v2 or a 3v3. Not all of them having the same lineup. But for instance, in a 5-man, paying out first and second, or even just winner take all. I don't care. You could simulate that. Winner take all. Like, let's say it's a 5-man winner take all. You don't even have to even account for the rake even. Doesn't matter to me. And let's say all my opponents, my 4 opponents are 2v2 from each other. None of them have the same lineup, but they all have 2v2s of similar players. So like lineup 1, lineup 2 are a 2v2. Lineup 2 and lineup 3 are a different 2v2. And lineup 3 and lineup 4 are different. So it's like between each other, they may be a 3v3 between each other, but they're a 2v2, like kind of, you get what I'm talking about. And then my lineup, which projects for like 2 or 3 points lower, has like none of all the players that they share, I have 0 of. Like anyone that is only 1 in their lineup, maybe I could have. But as long as 2 of my opponents have that player, I can't have that player. Like that's my goal, essentially. So my lineup could easily just be an 8v8 off of everyone. And then how often, what's the project? Like obviously you'd have to run players through it. But for every point in projection, meeting wise, let's just go by a normal distribution, even though that's really not the case. You do it. How often do I win? Right? What? Not even how often do I win? Like what's my ROI on that? What are their ROIs? Because I'm assuming their results are going to be more correlated with each other, right? If a lot of those players in those 2v2s do well, they'll be at 130 points competing for first between themselves. One will have 130, one will have 128, one will have 122, and my lineup would be like 67. It'd be like fucking horrible, right? Or it'll be the opposite, where a lot of their 2v2s are not doing well, and I have a couple of my players do decently, and I'm up there in 130 land, and then they're down all trying to compete for second place. Right? Or if there is no second place, who cares? Winner take all. It doesn't matter. It's like, so what is the projection? Can I go down 7 points in projection and still be profitable? Can I go down 10 points in projection? And this is assuming that there's a 2v2 between all of those lineups. Will that be the case every day? No, of course not. But that's the experiment I'm looking to make. So Daniel says he'll DM me later. So, for instance, go through the experiment. Here's an explanation. Here's I'll show you. If we were, obviously, this is 11:30 in the morning. That we don't have starting lineups, we don't have projections done. Based on these base projections. So we're going to the plate IQ projections. Let's just say I know in a 3-man. We're playing a 3-man. I'm playing a person that is using the RotoGrinders plate IQ projections. And I know they're more likely to use one of the optimal lineups. Okay? Something close to just to give me the best median projected lineup. Okay? So obviously I can just click and get that exact lineup. Right? So Rodon, Ohtani, this is DraftKings. Sanchez, Mountcastle, Story, Nevin, Cruz, Happ, Mancini, Trout. Okay? But maybe they don't necessarily play the top one because maybe one of these guys is only in the top one and not in the top 10. So I'm just going to build 10 lineups. So what are the 10 optimals for the Plate IQ projections. To see who's in the all. Okay, we get Mancini, Cruz, Story, Ohtani, Rodon at pitcher. Trout in 9 out of 10. Mountcastle in 7 out of 10. Right, but where's Gary Sanchez? 3. So Gary Sanchez isn't a key piece, even though he's in the top lineup. Okay, so now I'm going to go to I know my other opponent in the 3-man is going to play the bat optimal, or close to it. Okay, which is this: Kirby, Ohtani, Contreras, Tellis, Story, Wisdom, Baez, Morel, Happ, Trout. Obviously, a lot of Cubs. As of now, obviously, if you're listening to this later, this is the 11:02 in the morning projections with no starting lineups in. It may be close to this, but it's probably going to change. Batting orders change, people in, people out, who knows? Okay, so I'm going to run 10 of those, right? Because that's my other opponent. Okay? So now I'm going to look. I'm just like, what combined? Let's say I were to use, what am I using now? Well, how about I just use the aggregate of those? It's I don't even have to, I'm just going to say, should I use the bat? Should I use the Plate IQ projections? I'm going to use a combination of both. I'm just going to aggregate both of them together for my projections. Right, so I'm going to create this aggregate, which you can do in Lineup HQ. If you're a RotoGrinders premium member, right, you get this. A lot of people are like, how do you could download, I could upload 5 other sets of projections and aggregate them in different weights up for ownership and fantasy points. And you could do that inside of Lineup HQ. And let me tell you, this is so much more easy. This is so much easier than doing it in Excel. Unless you love Excel. Maybe some people do it way quicker in Excel. It always takes me a minute, 60 seconds to do in Excel. Here it takes me I don't even have to deal with anything. Just upload it and I can do it all in here. It's one of the best upgrades last year that we made. So I'm going to use the aggregate to determine what lineup to play against them. Okay? So if I just aggregate them together, right? I'm going to get this lineup. Kirby, Ohtani. So should I play this lineup? Okay. Well, let's take a look at, is there anyone that they share completely? So Ohtani as a pitcher. Ohtani. Okay, so now I'm going to look at this number, 113.58. If I get rid of Ohtani, how much does my projection go down? Yeah, a lot, 110.18. So it's 3.5 points just by not having Ohtani. So maybe I should keep Ohtani, right? Because once I get rid of Ohtani, then I'm done. That's too many points to give up. Okay, so who else is here? Do we still have O'Neal Cruz? Is O'Neal Cruz in here anywhere? No, but he's going to be in one of my opponent's lineups. Patrick Wisdom. So we got some Cubs in here. Cubs in the first lineup. Let's see. Ortega, Happ. Okay, Happ's in 4 out of 10 here. And Happ is in everything here. So I'm getting rid of Happ. So 113.58. If I get rid of Happ now, 112.79. So not that less than a point. I'm fine with less than a point. Okay? So now I'm getting Trout, Mancini, Ortega. So I'm getting Ortega, and I got one Ortega here. Contreras in 10. How many Contreras is in this lineup? You're getting 1. Okay, so let's get rid of Contreras and see. Okay, well, 112.79. If I X out Contreras, it now goes down to 111.43. Is that more than a point? Yeah, a little bit more than a point. So maybe we leave that in for now. Okay? And we take a look at some more. Kirby, Wisdom, Story, Acuna, Trout, 5 Trouts. How many Trouts in here? 9. Okay, so let's get rid of Trout. Let's see. 112.79. 112.04. Okay, less than a point. I'm fine with this now. Okay. Keep on going. 112.04. So Kirby. So this is going to have Ohtani and Rodon in it. This one's going to have Kirby in it. So let's see if I get rid of Kirby. 112.04 turns into 111.99. Let's say I get rid of, let's say I get rid of Rodon in this lineup. 111.99 turns into 111.84. Okay, we could get rid of 2 pitchers and not drop that much ownership. Okay, I'm good with that. 111.84. Okay, we still got O'Neill, Cruz, Reynolds, but we got Buxton. Right, this lineup's most likely going to have Mancini, O'Neill, Cruz, Trevor Story. Let's see how many of these. Trevor Story, 8. Okay, so we're going to try to get rid of him. Do we have any? We got Buxton and 1 down here. Okay, so we got 111.84. Getting rid of Story. How far do we drop? A little bit more than a point. 110.70. So let's put him back for now. I don't mind giving up a point, but let's see what other players can we get rid of that are part of other people's lineups. So let's try Mancini. 111.84, get rid of Mancini. 111.16. Okay, I'm fine with that. Less than a point. I'm good. Okay. We don't even have O'Neill, Cruz in this lineup, so we don't even have to worry about that. All right, so O'Neill, Cruz is probably not even going to be an issue. We're getting Contreras. Mountcastle is in 7 out of 10. We got Ward. Okay, he's less likely. Story's the most likely to be duped. And Ohtani, which we can't get rid of due to projection. Brian Reynolds. Ortega is in 4. Ortega, let's see if we get rid of Ortega. 1 here. Let's how many points do we get rid of if we get rid of Ortega? 111.116 becomes 110.80. We get Sawinski back in here. Okay, that isn't horrible. Can we get rid of Contreras? Let me put back Ortega. Let's try Contreras again. Can we drop Contreras and do better? 110.8? 109.54. So still more than a point. Which we can do, but I'd rather not drop a full point just on one player. Right? So maybe this is the lineup. Maybe we just end up with this. Right? Comparing the two. I don't even have to worry about O'Neill Cruz, right? He's in 10 out of these, but he's not even in this lineup. Right? So Montgomery, Ohtani, Contreras, Mountcastle, Story, Ramirez. Can we get rid of Mountcastle? He's in 7 of these. Let's see what happens. 111.16 becomes 110.82. That isn't bad, but it has Cruz in there. So let's get rid of Cruz as well. 110.43. Okay, this isn't that bad. This isn't that bad either. So maybe we do this. If we put Mountcastle back over there, we could probably still do this lineup also. So yeah, you'd have to make a decision on Mountcastle, I guess. But this isn't that bad, right? Montgomery, Ohtani, Contreras, Mountcastle, Story, Ramirez, Baez, Ortega, Ward, Reynolds. Okay? So let's put this lineup in. I'm going to save this lineup. And now if my opponents, for instance, built like the optimal of the plate IQ projections, let's just say, I'm going to save that top lineup. I'm going to save the top bat optimal lineup, right? And then let's take a look at them, okay? So essentially, based on the aggregate, my projection is about, well, this is not calculated based on, I would have to refresh. Can I refresh the save lineups? Yeah, there we go. Refresh the save lineups. 111.01 versus 110.16. 111.16. So they're not far off from each other, but who is in all 3 lineups? Story, Ohtani. Right, those are the only 2 that overlap. And then I have one Mountcastle overlap. Hap is overlap between my 2 opponents' lineups. Trout is overlap in 2 of my opponents' lineups. I have 1 overlap with Contreras. I think I have 1 overlap with Baez. But everyone else is different. So my opponents together, I have the least correlative lineup compared to both of my opponents while still maintaining a projection that is close enough to theirs. So in a 3-man, like, so for instance, in a 3-man or a 5-man, if I were to play against both of these lineups, would I be profitable because of their overlap? Of Story, Ohtani, Baez, Contreras, Trout, Happ, Mountcastle. Well, I have Mountcastle. And you can put in other projection sources and do the same thing. Maybe a lot of people are playing the bat optimal more than the plate IQ optimal. You weigh that accordingly. Right? So if like, oh, the plate IQ optimal, oh, I can't play that. Like, who says how many people are playing that? Who knows? You should know your contest that you're playing. So I'm showing you. This is, to me, I'm showing you exactly. This is exactly. There's no like, oh, I'm holding back. Oh my God, I got a supercomputer running this. I do everything and whatever, and this is just the BS. I'm literally showing you this is literally what I did at like 6:45 last night for both sides. Okay, literal, and it's not literally because I have other projection sources also. So this build, I would have a couple of them for different places that have projections. So run 10, and see where the overlaps are. And see if I get rid of the lineups that are overlapping with each other, the players, and what my project. And that's where I came up with this lineup. Right? That's how I came up with the FanDuel lineup. Right? It's like, oh, you're so much different. Yeah, because I got rid of O'Neill Cruz and Buxton and Kepler, and no, Kepler was on FanDuel. But all those guys down, Sawinski, 50% on, I got rid of all those guys. So that's the experiment that I'm doing. I'm calling it an experiment. I'm not sure if this is profitable. I'm not sure. Intuitively, I think it should be. Remember, the key is that you need to be able to predict your opponent's lineups. You can't predict, and that this process of going through it, like if you're like, well, I don't know, and I'll put together a lineup I think people are playing and then not play that lineup. Like, that's not going to work out. Like, if you can't predict the lineups that your opponents are going to play, I knew going in. I mean, I look at these lineups and I go, I know what this lineup's going to look like. I know Contreras, Kirk, or Perez are going to be in catcher. I know that you're going to get O'Neill Cruz. I know Devers at third base. I know Trout, Buxton. I know what and then you could just lock them in. I know there's going to be some combination of Mania, Cortez, and Strider. Right? Most likely Mania plus either Cortez or Strider. Then once you start eliminating all of that, then it's like you only got 3 spots left. So it's like, okay, I could see a lot of different combinations of those 3 spots. But I pretty much could guess 75% of my opponent's lineups. And once you guess that 75%, there's only certain salary ranges and positions that are available. So it makes it easy. If you want to do it manually. Me, I just go through the projection sources and just see what spits out, because that's typically what you're going to see. Daniel Hutchins says it should be a slam dunk at lower limits. Yes. Unfortunately, I'm not playing lower limits. I'm limited on FanDuel now. I can't play the less than $3 on FanDuel now. So I'm doing this on FanDuel in the $5 contest and above. But still, see, the thing about this is that if I'm doing this, I'm not necessarily scared of sharp players. Like the guys that I showed. Because I could better predict their lineups. They're always going to have good projected lineups, though. But I could predict them so much better. So I think over time, like this is what I'm going to do in baseball. It's so much easier to do this than try to win large field GPPs or something. And I'm judging my play by how better I can predict the line. Because really, that's what it comes down to. Especially in baseball, where it's so high variance. That was my lineup different enough? Was my lineup higher projected enough? So going through, like I did yesterday, like when I went through contests and I looked at my lineup compared to everyone else's lineups, I'm like, okay, I got really different. I didn't screw that part up. Right? The day before I did. The day before I wasn't different enough. FanDuel, it seemed like I was much more. I had some players that were in a lot of line. I mean, like I was a little bit closer. But I think on FanDuel you can be, because the salary cap is softer. It's hard not to have some 4K batter in your lineup if you're doing some of this stuff. So yeah, and obviously I didn't drop Ohtani because the projection went down too much. So it's like, okay, I know a lot of people are going to have Ohtani, but they're not going to have Ohtani with 5 of the guys that I have in my lineup. So I don't care, but I just don't want those popular combinations. And this is for 3-mans and 5-mans. I have to highlight this because I got a message yesterday. It's like, oh, I'm trying to do exactly what you did, and I'm playing in all my low stakes double ups. Like, don't do it in double ups. Do it in contests where you're getting at least 3x your money. At least 3x your money. 3x, 5x, 10x your money. Because you're playing a lower projected lineup. And you're gaining leverage. So it's just like the GPP concept. If you're gaining leverage, you should be gaining payout. You're gaining something. You shouldn't be playing lower projected lineups that still pay the same. Just play the highest projected lineup. That's fine. So a little lesson. We'll experiment today, going through my experiments. This is what we do in the morning, right? They'll take care of you later today for the baseball slate, right? 5 o'clock Eastern, Grinders Live, Dean and the guys. They'll be going over the 9-game MLB slate. Then we got crunch time right afterwards. I'm not sure if there's any weather issues. I think there's one possible weather issue. Washington at Baltimore, possibly. So they'll be there taking care of the weather, taking care of you leading up to lock, presented by FanDuel. That's free all year. Typically, that's a premium show, but it's free all year just for you. And if you want a tool like Lineup HQ, this is what I use. This is what I use. People ask me. So what do you really use? Like Lineup HQ. It's like, oh, you don't use insert some other tool, or you don't have your own? No. I show you what I do. I'm not trying to deceive anyone, right? Oh, it seems too simple. It is simple. It is simple. It's not that complicated. Understand the concept. Once you understand the concepts of how to play, these are all just numbers and names on a spreadsheet. Did you see me the entire show going over, spin rates and strikeouts and if they're good against sliders? No. Everything's in the projections. What do I care? So they'll be taking care of you later today. So hit that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell. You'll know exactly when they go live. You'll know when I go live. Right? Tomorrow, programming note. There'll be no pregame show, but there'll be Grinders Live. So I'll be on with Dean and Tim. I think tomorrow there's I don't even think there's a late slate. I think most of the games are in the afternoon or early. So we'll be on tomorrow. I think 11. Do I have to get up even earlier tomorrow? I don't know. When's the games tomorrow? I hope we'll be sometime in the morning. You'll see the thumbnail and you'll know. And they'll say a time and then you show up. Right? And we'll be talking about the slate tomorrow. And then I'll be back. Then Friday. I'll be on that show anyway. So it's like it's Grinders Live. I'll be there with Dean and Tim. And then Friday, I'll be back and then we'll be done doing the free MMA. We'll do all the MMA stuff on Friday. So say hello to Devin. Devin's typically not here early in the morning, taking care of the YouTube chat. Of course, Devin shows up on the day where we don't have porn spam bots in the chat. Right, the past 2 days, it seemed like every 10 minutes I had to hide user from this channel, and Devin's here and nothing happens.
Don't speak too early. You're giving them plenty of time.
They're scared. They're scared of him, right? Because he has to take care of all that stuff later in the day. So show up for Grinders Live. Crunch time later today. I'll see you tomorrow on Grinders Live, and I'll be back on Friday for MMA and answer your DFS strategy questions like I always do on the DFS pregame show on RotoGrinders.com.